Welcome to Sinister Heroes. I'm your host, Danny Iniquitous. Thank you for tuning in. Today we're going to try and forcibly put some love where it doesn't belong. I'm talking about the Undying Warlock patron. Now, the undead are very near and dear to my heart, and I cannot stand by and watch it be so useless, or at least perceived that way. So today, we're going to try and change that perspective and maybe make this workable. Maybe give somebody the understanding of what they can do and see more of the Undying. Look, it's going to be a challenge. This is not an easy subclass to work with, but you know what? We're going to fight for it because here at Sinister Heroes, we fight for the Undying because the undead are near and dear to our hearts, and we love the role-playing potential of being this kind of like a sinister being because you're so infused with this necrotic energy and this dark power, and it feels spooky and creepy and scary, and we love that. And because of that, we're not going to let this go down without a fight. If you like that theology, please like, share, subscribe so we can keep going. That out of the way, let's talk about one of the fundamental things about the Undying that people are always constantly worried about, and that's damage. So looking at this subclass right off the bat, nobody sees anything that really boosts their damage. It's just a turn off for a lot of people, especially if you're a min-maxer. Don't get me wrong, I get it. You want to deal damage, you want to hit high numbers. It feels great to do so. But the Warlock class inherently has those abilities set. You have Eldritch Blast and Agonizing Blast that makes you the best range damage dealer in your party. You throw Hex on that, and your damage is essentially covered. Anything else you need, you can get that by doing other spells. Like if you throw Summon Undead out there, you get additional attacks every round and a chance to maybe paralyze someone, and you get variable abilities that are very, very good. So just relying on your damage from the subclass alone is almost always going to be a trade-off between will it be more damage than Eldritch Blast and Agonizing Blast, or will it just barely end up being about the same? Don't worry too much about damage because it is always there, especially with casters. You always have an availability to do that. You always have an availability to increase your damage through various things, and you can do that easily with the base Warlock. So that being out of the way, and again, this is definitely an Eldritch Blast kind of character, so be prepared to be in the back. With that, we're going to talk about some of the actual features and some of the spells that you get, and just one or two things that I just think are very cool and thematic. Alright, I want to talk about the expanded spell list first. Generally speaking, an expanded spell list is only one or two things I actually really like or tend to take from them. Now, this has a few things that I personally like. I get it if you don't like them, but that's just kind of the way it is. I happen to love Ray of Sickness. If you're fighting anything that's not undead or demons, it's fantastic. Use it on goblins, use it on giants, use it on anything else in between. It's fun. It causes the poison condition, which I love that condition, even though it very rarely gets applied. I get it, it's not typically favored, but just something I happen to like. One of the major things on this list that I think is awesome is Blindness Deafness, which is a great spell. Since you have pack magic, your spell slot levels always go up, so you end up casting at higher levels no matter what. This increases the amount of people you can cast Blindness Deafness on, going up to I think 3 or 4 when you hit 5th level. And it's a great debilitating debuff. It helps your party a lot, and it's very thematic for being an Undying Warlock. It seems like something that you would instantly take away from your enemies. It's very cool. It's very awesome. It always retains its viability throughout the game, so you don't have to feel bad about picking it and maybe not keeping it later, because it's a great spell to keep around. Second Silence, awesome. You see casters drop it and let yourself go ham. It's fun, it's cool, it's a great way to stop enemies, it's a great way to stop a lot of things. Use it. It's a very cool concept, it's a great spell. And it's on the list, it's great, use it. I can't say that enough. That being said, Aura of Life, I think, is a cool thematic spell, because if you've never used a spell, you don't know what it does. It creates an aura around you, and anything that's living and non-hostile to you, if it has resistance to necrotic damage, and if it falls to 0 HP, it regains 1 HP just from being within the aura. Now, looking at that, it's a very cool thing. I mean, you're an Undying Warlock, and as things drop, they just keep popping back up, and it's just a cool thing. I don't know if it's viable, because that's probably a very bad situation to be in, but it's a very cool thing. If I ever got the opportunity to do that, yeah, I'd absolutely do that. Like if I was going to play a scenario where I was in a war or something, or I was trying to save a village and I had the availability to cast that spell, I'm casting that spell and I'm walking through the village and I'm having the villagers pop up during the raid or whatever's attacking them, which is cool. It's exciting. I just like it. Probably never going to happen, but just something cool to think about. Now, I get it. Situational spells are very situational, but as a warlock, especially an Eldritch Blast like warlock, most of your spells are going to hex anyway. You might as well have a bunch of stuff for situations. It seems like that kind of a concept, which is probably going to come up a couple of times throughout this video. So the first subclass feature you get is called Among the Dead. This gives you a free Spare the Dying cantrip, which is a useful cantrip, especially if you have very limited healers or no healer in the party. The second thing you get is an effect very similar to the Sanctuary spell, where if the undead try to attack you, they first have to succeed a wisdom save. If they succeed it, they don't have to make this check for another 24 hours. Also, if you attack the undead, then it doesn't need to make this save because it will automatically succeed for 24 hours. If you're in the vicinity of an AoE spell, it'll still hit you. But it makes it harder for them to do so. So what you do is you minimize and you focus fire your attacks on the undead one by one, and it greatly improves your survivability. It's very cool. You feel like an Undying Warlock, like your patron is someone that's like a lich or something like that when you gain its ability. It's very thematic, it's very cool, it's very defense oriented, and it plays into that single target damage which you get from Eldritch Blast and Agonizing Blast. It works very well. I think it's designed that way specifically so that way you can single down who you're attacking and keep a good distance from your party, which kind of makes you feel different from like your party, which is probably all living people anyway. So there's always that inherent like robust themology behind it, which is cool. I just happen to like it. It's something that I would notice that most other people probably wouldn't. They would just think it's a tactical thing, but it's a very cool concept. This is permanently on. You can use it constantly. It's exciting. It's cool. It's a great defensive feature, and I think a lot of people think this is the only good feature you get. But a lot of these subclass features are based around defense. So don't sleep on Among the Dead because it's very useful, especially if you're playing a horror campaign where there are vampires and there are zombies and there are liches and things like that, because it's going to work to your benefit to have this. It's going to be cool. You're going to feel awesome once it hits. And rest assured, you are definitely going to be targeted. And if they have no one else to use those spell and they burn a spell slot, that's a very big boon. Again, I understand why people think this is not the great subclasses. Again, I see why this is one of their better features. Now, we're going to jump on to their second one, which I think is a cool feature. The next subclass ability you get is called Defy Death. This you get at 6th level. This is a very, very undying feeling ability. What it does is if you happen to use Spare the Dying on one of your fallen teammates, or if you succeed on a death save, you can regain 1d8 plus your con modifier HP. This is, if you're not in a game with a lot of healing, this is very, very beneficial. Mainly because if you're down and you fail to death save, or if you're about to fail a death save and like you're scared of permanently dying, pump this up and you're good. You know, like you can use it once per long rest, but reviving from almost death once is pretty good. It's a it feels thematic, and I like that ability. I like to feel that my subclass is very different from the other ones. Now, I get this doesn't really do much else for you, but in a game that's the higher difficulty setting of the game, the low healing, the gritty realism, if you play games like that, or if you play games that just all the encounters are difficult, which I happen to love. Like, I like to feel like I'd rather have 1 or 2 combats and have them like I'm on the verge of dying every single time than to have like a slew of them that are pretty easy. That's just personal taste. But this is one of those things it's clutch. Like, if you have this ability and you need this ability, it is gonna feel like just the ultimate savior. It's gonna feel so great when you hit it. It's gonna make you feel incredible, and it's an awesome ability. I get that other subclasses do that. I get that the half-orc gets it just for being a half-orc. But you gotta understand, like, you're a warlock. Like, you sold your soul to be able to do these things. So having to do them later kind of fits thematically. And I get it. Not everyone's super into role-playing. A lot of people are min-maxers. This is not a min-maxer subclass. Sorry. But if you want to play a character that feels like the Undying, that feels like you're giving yourself to try and become a lich, this is great. This is where you should be. The next subclass feature you get is at level 10. This is Undying Nature. This you don't need to eat, sleep, drink water, and you can hold your breath indefinitely. A lot of this is just ribbon, but if you happen to be someone that's sneaky or is working on something, This is a cool thing. Ultimately, this really doesn't give you much. It's just kind of a roleplay thing that's kind of cool, and it makes you feel more like an Undying and more like something that is blurred the lines between life and death, which is a very cool thing. Also, it makes it that every 10 years you live, you only age 1 year, so it greatly extends your life, which is cool in theory. It doesn't really do much for the mechanics of the game, but you know, it's a fun little ribbon ability. Do I wish there was something else here? Yeah, but unfortunately there isn't. But you gotta understand, at 10th level, a lot of campaigns end at 12 or 13. You know, not many campaigns go that much higher than where you already are. So understand that the power creep at this point is very big, and what you can do is very, very, very strong. So you don't really have to worry about too much. You know what I mean? Like, it'd be nice to gain other things, yeah. I really wish this had something to it, but unfortunately this is just nothing. And I think this is the main reason why a lot of people dislike the class. But being able to not sleep is a cool thing. You can do things. If you had a profession and maybe you worked out of something with crafting with your DM, this is a great way to do it. Maybe you're kind of a thief and maybe you decide to break into stuff and do that. You can do that because if you have all your spell slots and you're at full HP, you don't need to rest because there's no exhaustion for you to gain from not resting. You know, you just have to just be, you know what I mean? Like, it's different than needing to rest because there's no need to rest for X amount of hours like a Warforged or going to a trance like an elf, because you don't need that. You just need to rest if you need to extinguish exhaustion. So you can do other things, which is a little different, and that's kind of like the benefit of it. But you can absolutely break into someone's shop and steal all their shit while they're sleeping because you don't need to stay motionless. It's just weird, I get it. Not the greatest thing in the world. Hard to pitch into great sunlight, but it's not something you need. It's cool if you have it. Doesn't mean anything if you don't, but again, doesn't do anything for the class, and I'm sorry to say it. So at 14th level, you get the final subclass feature, which is called Indestructible Life. Now, a lot of people automatically look at this and go, wow, this is not great. This gives you the bonus action where you can regain 1d8 plus your Warlock level HP. If you happen to have lost a limb, which is super rare, you can attach it and it will become viable again. This is one of those things that you look at on paper and it's just like, wow. Like, everything else gets these incredible things like hurl through hell and like all this other stuff that's so dynamic, and all you do is you get a bonus action healing. Here's where the realization of where you are in the campaign comes into play. You're at 14th level. A lot of campaigns end at this point. Most of them end before, or are just like, this is like the very, very last segment before campaigns end. A lot of times you don't reach level 16 or higher. Unless you could, you particularly join a game where somebody homebrewed a lot of content to do that. So the chances of you really actually hitting this level is not very high. I get that if you wanted to go full on, maybe this isn't the best scenario to be in, being an Undying Warlock, but this ability does give you a boost to healing. In games where healing is scarce, in games where you don't have healers, any healing really helps, and it's a great increase. I mean, you can get a pretty sizable amount of HP. You can only use it once per short rest or long rest, but it's not worthless. It's not the greatest thing in the world, but it's definitely not worthless. And I wish there was more to it, but understanding where you are, your damage is good, because at this point you're basically wrecking everything from range because you've been doing so all game, and your power levels basically stayed at that point. So it's not a damage scenario. If I was at this point, I'd be using the invocation to cast Raise Dead for free once a day, and I'd have a zombie just basically right next to me as a bodyguard, and I'd be using Summon Dead anyway because I happen to feel that's very, very thematic and that works really well. And I'd also have Repelling Blast so I can keep things at a distance. So then I have two undead running around doing my bidding, and I have a range attack. Like, I feel comfortable in battle. I'd feel comfortable doing, surviving, and I won't feel too bad because my damage is already there as a warlock. I get it. You're not getting anything crazy. You're not. I'm sorry. I hate it. But it's not that you're useless in any way, shape, or form because the core class is so strong. And that's what you're really falling back on in this subclass. And I'm going to get into that right now as I talk about my final thoughts about this. So everything now out in the open. How do I make this viable? Really, it's about picking the right campaign for this character. First and foremost, talk to your DM because he has all these answers and you need them to really actively use this character class. First and foremost, are there going to be undead? And a lot of them. If the answer is yes, put this on the list. How high level is this campaign going to go? Most campaigns, again, they don't go past 10, 11, or 12. If it's within that range, put this character class on the list. It's going to be viable. It's going to be great. As long as you hit around 6th level, you're going to be good. And as long as you don't have to go super high level, this is going to be perfectly viable the entire time. And thirdly, are encounters going to be very difficult, or are they going to be kind of easy, or is it going to be like super challenging? Like, are there going to be a lot of healing potions and things like that? And if the answer is it's going to be challenging, the encounters are built to be difficult most of the time, and there's not a lot of viability for healing potions outside of healing from abilities and character spells, put this character on the list. It's viable in those scenarios. There's a lot of undead. There's a lot of campaigns that run where people fight undead constantly. It's a great tool. DMs use it all the time. It's valuable. So if those things match up, play this character. I really think it's viable. I think it works, but people think because it's so specific to scenarios that, and like these scenarios don't ever come up. Like, how many times have you killed a zombie? How many times have you fought vampires? Like, it's regular. It's a trope. It's something that happens regularly in games anyway. Use that to your advantage. I don't think it's a complete waste because I'm always a role player first and I am a mechanical character. Like, I get it. Everyone wants to hit high numbers. Breaking down that math is very, very exciting for a lot of people. This is not that subclass. If you want to feel like you're slowly becoming undead, that's great. This is the character class for that because your abilities reinforce that. If you wanted to play a character that has amnesia and doesn't know what's happening and doesn't know that he sold his soul to a lich, but slowly becoming undead, this is a very cool character to play as. It works. I get it. You're competing with the undead subclass, which is very close and has its own cool abilities. But this isn't to be left in the dust. It's a tough subclass. It's never going to be top tier as far as subclasses go. But it's not forgotten. And I hope somebody gives it a chance. I'll be giving it a chance soon. Thank you for giving a Spooky Kid a chance.